to It's Okay to Be Gay, the podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the It's Okay to Be Gay podcast. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. This is Miss Veronica Witt.
And this is Mr. David Van Etten-Witt.
Hey, thank you, Veronica. I'm so glad that you're able to join me again and to share this wonderful moment with you. I appreciate that. You are experiencing a little bit of a weather event in Madison, Wisconsin.
I know, but it's not spring yet, so it's perfectly plausible that snow would be happening.
It's March 18th.
I know, but it's not quite
I don't know when people
yet.
are listening to this, by the way, but we're recording and it's March 18th anyway.
It's perfectly normal, actually. The flurries are back now. They're flurries. This is not snow. If anybody from the Midwest knows the difference between flurries and actual snow. It's flurries, and it's really frickin' cold. That's the one bad thing. But
well, it was 47 degrees this morning, so we're,
it's not gonna hit 47 here for, actually tomorrow it's supposed to be 45.
Oh, hey, that's nice.
As a high.
Well, actually, over at night, we're going to be down to 31 degrees here. So we are still experiencing freezing temperatures down here in Texas in the middle of March. Something's definitely going on with the weather, and I'm not okay with it.
It's 22 here currently.
That's okay. Well,
it is okay.
I will take my 40-some degrees over your 22 any day.
That's fair.
Anyway, we're so glad that you guys are listening to us again. We are in the midst of our podcast at some point, and if you are tuning in for the first time, perhaps you're just catching the first little episode, or maybe you just decided to pick us up where we're starting right now. This is the It's Okay to Be Gay podcast, and it is all about sharing the stories of people who are in the LGBTQ community, sharing the stories of people who are allies with the LGBTQ community. Maybe it's also sharing stories of friends and family who have, children or siblings or cousins or uncles who are in the LGBTQ community. So we're glad you're tuning in today. We hope that there's some things that you hear during our interview today that is going to be a wonderful takeaway for you. We do have some really fun people lined up to share their journeys and their experiences about being gay, about being lesbian, about being bisexual or trans, wherever they are in the spectrum. And they undoubtedly will have some wonderful nuggets for all of you to take away. So real glad you're tuning in. So thank you for being here.
Speaking of nuggets, I can't wait until we get to the part of the podcast where we talk about a gay chicken.
A gay chicken? There's no possibility, Veronica, that anybody would ever bring up a gay chicken in a podcast. That would be ridiculous. But there's a possibility. So, yeah, keep listening. And I'm pretty sure that the comment wasn't actually about a gay chicken.
It wasn't. But that's what all I could think of is, what does a gay chicken look like? What does it look like?
Okay, so if you're curious as to what a gay chicken's all about, or how would that even come up, keep listening, because you might hear that in the near future. Earlier, Veronica, I noticed your lovely cat was on your lap while we were getting ready to start recording.
Yeah, she's gone now.
How fat is your cat again?
She's big. She's about this big. I don't know. She's a chunker, all right. She's probably close to 20 pounds, actually.
There you go. Okay, thanks. That's what I was asking for, because a lot of people are going to hear it this big and be like, what? I'm listening to you. I can't see how big your hands are. So I did
just make the pantomime of holding her.
Yeah, so if you're wondering, Veronica and I are both huge cat fans.
Just general animal lover for me.
Pet lovers in general. I think that's very true. We both grew up in households that were full of pets at many and all times. Our grandparents' house and their farm and their store were full of cats on the reg.
Absolutely no cats were allowed in Granny's house. Oh my God. If there was a kitten, we used to literally like
Smuggle the cat.
kittens were contraband, and we would smuggle them into the basement so we could play with them, not in the garage where they were meant to be, but in a nice, comfortable basement, because that was more fun. And God forbid Granny would find out. I mean, she just let you have it. Get that cat out of the house.
Yeah. I don't know what it was with her. Do you think that was
I
like
don't know
like
either.
a story that she heard as a child, or was she like attacked as a child by a cat?
I don't think so.
inside?
She
Like,
was
where
fine
was
with
that
cats.
aversion to
I
them
feel
being
like
in
it
the
was.
house?
I wonder if it was like a cleanliness thing, like no cat hair, or or maybe that you let one cat in, and then they're
All
like,
of them are
"Hey,
gonna come in.
we're coming
Yeah.
inside," and then they'd force their way in. So I think she was just drawing that line of
Yeah.
nope, cats are meant for the barn and the garage.
I don't
That's
know
it.
if it was a cleanliness thing, because as far back as I can remember, my uncle who lived with my grandma and grandpa had a dog.
Right, that's true. Fair enough.
And
Missy.
yeah,
They're all named
Missy.
Missy.
All the
Even
Missies.
all the
Missies.
Missies. Literally for our entire life of X amount of years.
There's been a
About 4
dog named
decades.
Missy.
There's a
Yeah.
dog named Missy in the house, and
Mhm.
for the first time, when was it that Missy, the recent Missy,
Missy 4.0 is now Max.
Missy 4.0 is named. It's not Max, Sam.
Oh, Sam. Why
Oh
do I
my
always call
God!
him
See,
Max?
because the name
Because
is
his name's Missy. Yes.
Because his name is Missy, and we refuse to
Because his
call
name's
this
Missy.
dog by his name, Sam. It's still Missy.
Right.
It's the same thing as gray cats in my house. They're all named Timmy.
Timmy.
So,
Yes.
so that just is what it is. Oh, and
Yeah,
it's snowing again.
There you go. Yeah, we have 2 cats in our house. One of my cats has an Instagram. Follow him at see below. I'm just kidding. Actually, I probably will put it in the comments now, because it mentioned it.
You have to.
So follow my cat, Cattery Binks. He's got an Instagram, and he's absolutely adorable. But his brother, Oliver, who's only 3 years old, weighs about 4 pounds more, 3 pounds more than Binks does. He's a chunker, and we recently got a automatic litter box.
Ooh.
And the litter box actually will track the weight of the cat that gets in.
No way.
Yeah, and so we know which cat is using the litter box at which time. I feel like that's a little bit of an invasion of
It's
privacy.
a little bit
but,
like,
you know, so
Yeah.
we know that Oliver goes to the bathroom in that cat box at least like 4 times a day, and then Binks at least 3 times a day. So it's kind of funny. But yeah,
that is funny.
Binks is 12-ish pounds, and Oliver is like 15 and a half.
So does your automatic litter box scoop immediately after they're out? Because my fear with an automatic litter box is that it's going to start scooping. The cat's going to only be half done, like walk out and be like, wait, I didn't do all my business, go back in, and then get scared, literally
Yes.
shitless by this automatic thing, and then not want to poop there anymore.
Yeah.
That's the fear in my brain.
So I'll have to comment on it later, but which I'm sure it'll come up again. But no, it has a 7-minute delay. So after the cat gets out and then there's no activity in the box, it does its cycle. So it does wait a good amount of time to make sure that nothing like that happens. And then it also has like an automatic stop feature where if the cat gets back in it mid-cycle, it'll shut down and doesn't rotate too. So it's pretty smart. It was a good design.
No kidding.
It's by Litter Robot. So I think it's the Whisper 3.
Dude, what I
Whisper
use for
4.
cat litter, this is my greatest tip to bestow upon cat folk. If your cat is okay with using any sort of pellet litter, or you can get them to transfer to pellet litter, don't pay for feline pine. It's overpriced. Go to your local farm supply store and get a bag of pine pellets used for horse bedding or other small or farm animal or livestock bedding. I guarantee you will pay a fraction of the price for a 40-pound bag. That is my best insider tip. Find you a farm supply store, which I don't know where you're listening, but we've got plenty here in Wisconsin. So,
and if there's no farm supply stores nearby you, a lot of those farm supply stores do online shipping. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there you go. There's no excuse. All right. Well, Veronica, I'm very excited today because the person that we are having on our show any minute is a very good friend of mine. We've kept in touch over the years by playing Pokemon Go together, and he and I are huge comic book fans. And he's truly a remarkable individual. He's been through a lot in his life. So we're ready to bring him on, and I'm excited for all of you guys to hear his story.
Yay.
This is Stephen, who is from Wichita Falls. So, Stephen, welcome to the It's Okay to Be Gay podcast. We're so glad that you're here today.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Stephen.
So Stephen and I connected many, many years ago through my first boyfriend. My first boyfriend, Andrew, lived in the same town that Stephen did. And Andrew and Stephen knew each other from being in the same place. And when I was going back to Wichita Falls with my first boyfriend, Andrew, to visit his family at some point, I had an opportunity to meet with Stephen. We became good friends. We have a lot of shared interests, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I just wanted, Stephen, you to have a chance to talk a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and kind of share just a little bit about where you came from.
Yeah, so I grew up, I'm born and raised here in Wichita Falls, which is a small rural type community. We've got about 100,000 people in the town. I actually went to school in a smaller town just outside of Wichita Falls called Petrolia, which has like 700 people for the entire town, which is significantly smaller.
Feel.
Yeah,
Right.
very, very small town. Conservative Bible Beltish area, so, but for the most part, everybody's, generally nice. There wasn't a whole lot of anti-gay stuff in town, but there wasn't a whole lot of any LGBTQ representation, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Very good. And so as you grew up in this little small town and were raised in kind of, it sounds like maybe sort of this little bubble of, there being so few people.
very much.
How did you come to maybe recognize your inclination towards being a member of the LGBT community, or your first kind of understanding of your sexuality? How did that start to develop or unravel itself, I guess?
Honestly, I would say it probably started, around puberty-ish time frame, fifth, sixth grade, somewhere around there. Kind of my big awakening, so to speak, as me realizing that I liked guys or that I was attracted to guys anyway, was in, I guess, because our junior high included sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And so in sixth grade athletics, and, all the guys have to go to the locker room and get naked in front of each other. And that was pretty much I was like, hey, yeah, I like that. That's guys are attractive. So, and I had right, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And then in seventh grade, I had a friend that we hung out. We were best friends for a while, and then kind of things evolved on a sleepover one night a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I kind of enjoy this. He was, I think, just kind of, I don't know, experimenting
Right.
at the time.
Right.
We were both experimenting, I guess you could say. It's just I fell on one side of the experiment, and he fell on the other side of the experiment.
There you go. Yeah,
or at least to my knowledge. So
Right.
he turned out
Sure.
to be more on the straight side than I was, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a tipping point or a turning point or a point of recognition. A lot of people in puberty, going through the puberty stage, seventh, eighth, grade, start to recognize that there is that attraction and start to realize that it's a little more than just a curiosity. And
Right.
growing up, growing up, I had a friend that I'd go over to spend the night at his house, and we'd play games and we'd watch movies all the time, and then we'd always kind of play around and do, it was innocent enough, but at the same time for me it was more realizing
kind of that,
hey, this is the kind of
playing
nice,
gay chicken.
right. And I don't think that it was kind of in the same situation as you, where I turned out to be more on the homosexual side of things. He turned out to be more on the heterosexual side of things. But both of us were kind of experimenting and discovery. This is self-discovery, right? So very much so relatable in that arena for sure.
Just a
yeah,
it
was.
I'm really thinking about what a gay chicken looks like now. Like really fashionable. I mean, Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, they have a really defining cluck. Pagaw?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's perfect.
Uh,
So, as you kind of grew more into your sexuality, Stephen, how did that begin to manifest itself more during the high school years, early college years? Tell, like, just unravel,
Yeah,
peel back that story just a little
the
bit
la-
more for us. Yeah.
the layers a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I kind of like I wouldn't say that I was necessarily interested in girls in like elementary and junior high, because I don't know that I've ever seriously been interested in girls in any kind of like romantic way. Um, but I also, because I was in a small school, my single grade had 40 people in it, as the total grade. So,
I used
you
to
know,
teach middle school, and I had 28 students in a class at one point,
yeah,
and then there was three
yeah.
or four classes. It's
You know,
funny.
two of those classes would have made it my entire grade. So,
Wow. Yeah.
the option to date, obviously, and granted, keep in mind this is also in the 90s. So,
Right.
this was back in the height of the AIDS pandemic, and being gay was definitely in a rural community was definitely not a thing to be out about. Um, so you kind of had to pick and choose who you talk to about it. I mostly just stuck to myself in junior high and high school. I had friends and we hung out. Um, and I was in high school band, so I was kind of the band geek.
Right.
Um,
what did you play?
what didn't I play? I played just about everything brass.
Nice.
I started off in trumpets and made myself through uh, baritone and tuba, sousaphone for marching band.
Yep.
Had a good time with that. I would say my favorite was probably the baritone. Baritone was my favorite instrument total. Uh, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was kind of my cathartic release.
Hmm.
I could go there and really just be myself in general. Um, but I really just kept to
Definitely.
myself about my sexuality uh, all throughout high school.
Okay.
Just I had friends, and I took a friend as a date to prom. We weren't romantically inclined,
Sure.
uh, but nobody really brought it up.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I just didn't, I was like, we'll just leave what's under the rug,
Yeah, those
you know.
questions better left unanswered sometimes, right?
Uh-huh.
So,
What
how was
what's funny
your?
though is,
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna move on. Tell me what's funny.
What's funny is after high school, I find out that there were probably about three or four different people that came out later in life,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
that was in my grade. So it was like, probably a
Interesting.
good at least 10% of our class was
Yeah.
gay, even though we were a
Yeah.
small class.
And
10%
no
of
one
us, there
talked
was,
it. Yeah. No
yeah,
one
and
talked
nobody
about it
talked
at the
about it.
time. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
I was gonna ask how was your family dynamics? Like, do you have brothers and sisters? Both parents involved?
So, when I was growing up, it was my mom and dad. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of grew up in a slightly, abnormal childhood when it comes to parents because both of my parents were handicapped.
Okay.
My dad had a lot of health issues, which led to him having both of his legs amputated throughout my childhood.
Oh wow.
So he was a double amputee. And my mom grew up. Uh, she had polio when she was 6 months old as a baby,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
and so she grew up with braces on her legs and walking with crutches under her arms.
Right.
Yeah.
And mostly through my childhood, she was kind of the breadwinner. She was the one that worked. She worked at the local Air Force base that's here in Wichita Falls, Shepherd Air Force Base. Um, and as a civil servant, she worked there for 29 years. So
That's pretty impressive.
all of my growing up time frame, she worked there.
Yeah.
And my dad was, because of his WMT and other health issues, he wasn't able to work. So he was an
Mm-hmm.
at-home dad basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But he never really let that slow him down a whole lot. I mean, he had hand controls on his vehicle, and he
Yeah.
could get in the passenger side, fold up his wheelchair, pull it in, and go wherever he needed to go.
Yeah. That's
So he
awesome.
didn't let it slow him down any. So I took a lot of that from my parents, as far as just, you just got to live life
Mm-hmm.
and do it. Like nobody's
Right.
gonna do it for you. So
Accept it.
just,
Accept it.
yeah,
Yeah.
accept
And
it and keep going.
how were they as far as growing up? Did you kind of get from them a sense of of acceptance? Did you ever feel like, oh, this is something I'm like going to be hesitant about coming out? Like, kind of how did you come out to them, or how did?
So I never got the opportunity to come out to my dad. I didn't
I'm
come out
sorry.
until no, you're fine, you're fine. I didn't come out until I didn't come out in general until I was out of high school. My dad passed away when I was 17.
Oh, sorry.
He had some serious heart issues and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but he's definitely in a better place. So I'm not too worried about that. But I don't know how accepting he would have been. He was a pretty conservative guy, but he wasn't super religious. So I was I'm his only son. So my mom and him had me, and then he has three daughters from a previous marriage. So that I have three sisters that were significantly older than me, 12 plus years
Gotcha.
older than me. So and by the time I was up in even in grade school, they were already moved out of the house and having kids and all that. So
Yeah. So then
that
how
was kind of one of those.
with your mom then, as far as
I came out to my mom when I was 30 officially.
Okay.
So it took a little bit longer for that, and not because I was necessarily ever afraid that she would like. I think in every gay person's mind, or anybody who's questioning their identity, or if they know what it is but they're just afraid to tell people, other than coming out as straight, like which straight people don't have to
don't have
do.
to do
Right.
exactly.
You just it's a given. Your default is straight unless you're something else. But there's always that fear in the back of your mind that when you say something and it's out there, you can't take it back, and you don't know how that person's going to react.
Yeah.
So you
So
have to
true.
be in a comfortable place, I think, with yourself, regardless to what like, and I think a lot of gay people, David can probably attest to this. When you're on the verge of coming out to somebody, you run through the scenario in your head of every way they could possibly react,
Yes,
so that
100%.
you're prepared. How are they going to react? Because and most of the time, your brain fixates on the worst kind of reaction. But I got to the point
Yeah.
where I had been out enough to my friends, and I kind of was just like, Mom, I just needed to get this out of the way. And she was very accepting and understanding, and has been very accepting and understanding ever since.
Yeah. Do you think growing up that she was aware or knew kind of in the back of her mind that you were gay or that you had that inclination or
I think she had to at some point have had those ideas. Some of it I think she could push away because her oldest brother, my uncle, that lives up in Oklahoma City, didn't date girls until he was in college,
okay.
and he got married and had kids, and and there's nobody. I come from one of those random families where there's little to no gay people in my family at all.
Sure.
Like a lot of gay families have at least one or
Somebody
two
else that's in
interspersed.
there.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. There's a gay cousin or something out there,
Right.
But no, I'm the gay cousin.
Yeah.
I was gonna say David's our gay cousin.
I'm the gay cousin too. Hey, what's up, Steve?
Right?
That's so. I'm curious.
So yeah.
I'm curious that there would be when you were growing up, like a fear of coming out to your parents or a fear of letting your family know. Is that like an accurate assumption that there was always a concern of
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh my God, are they going to disown me, or what are they going to think, or how are they going to treat me, or what kind of thing?
Yeah, and so I would definitely say there's that fear. And like one of my best friends, who's still one of my best friends, he lives down in South Texas now. He was one of my first like close friends that I came out to. And it was shortly after high school. I was working at a vet clinic here in town as a technician, and his mom was the office manager there. I had come out to a coworker up there, and unbeknownst to me, she discussed it with her, which I wasn't very happy with her about initially. But I was dating under the in the closet dating
Right.
a guy that was living down in the Midland, Odessa area, and I had mentioned that I was going out of town that weekend, and my friend's mom was basically like my surrogate mother. Like we were we're best friends, but we're also basically brothers,
Hmm.
brother from another mother kind of thing. And so she she came to me, and she's like, so I heard you were going out of town. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go down to Midland visit a friend. And she's like, so how long have y'all been dating? And I just kind of got this,
Oh
Deer in the
no.
headlights. Oh
uh,
shoot, I'm caught.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's okay. I love you regardless. Now, mind you, my friend's mother is Hispanic and seriously Catholic.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
So, David, you know, that's
Yes, I can
Yeah.
that
relate to
comes with a whole
this.
set of prerequisites in your brain of how they're going to
Yeah.
react to things.
Yep.
Um, and so, but she's been always been very supportive and understanding and never had an issue.
Awesome.
So that was kind of one of my first coming out to an adult figure
Hmm.
when I was in my early, late teens, the early 20s.
Yeah, that
And
had to be.
and it was a very scary
Hmm.
experience, but it turned out to be a good experience, so it was very positive. I know a lot of people don't have that particular
Yeah,
experience.
every once in a while,
I
people
feel my
can surprise you with how, far their love goes, because there is something about embracing who you are as a person and recognizing that who you are as a person that I think there's a good amount of people out there that are in that same sort of bubble where they grew up religious or grew up conservative or whatever, and you always expect the worst, and there's the potential that their love is going to overshadow or conquer the predispositions that we have about how they would react to something. So I think
right.
it's beautiful to hear that every once in a while that somebody has an experience like that. So that's really neat that you were able
Yeah.
to, encounter that as one of the first, like you said, first adults that found out about you, to have them feel
Yeah.
that way. But that was probably very special.
Yeah. And then she of course outed me to my friend, who I didn't know she had outed me to.
Uh-huh.
And he tries to get me on the phone and tries to lead me into conversation of,
Mm,
that sort of thing without trying to let me know that he knows already, which was,
Oh.
I was like, I know how to navigate
yeah, it
that.
feels like you're
I can get
fishing.
around that.
Right.
Feels like
Yeah.
you're fishing. I can avoid that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until maybe a couple of years later when we were actually, because he was at that time in the military and living in Idaho, so we weren't able to actually hang out in person. But the next time we got to hang out in person, uh, we discussed it, and he's like, "Well, why didn't you come out to me sooner in high school?" And I was like, "Dude, you were throwing around F slurs and
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and things that would make me think that you weren't going to be cool with somebody who was gay."
Hmm.
And I certainly wasn't going to come out to somebody like that. And I still loved you as a brother. Like, I get that those are things that people say when they're kids and they don't know better.
Right.
But I was like, that didn't make me any more inclined to do so.
Yeah.
you know?
I had a good friend in college, and we worked together. Actually, I worked at the university student center, the Catholic student center, when I was in school, and he worked with me there. And just recently, after I had gotten married and publicized, my relationship with my husband, he messaged me and he was like, "Hey, I just want to apologize. And, if there was
Oh.
anything that I ever said that was judgmental or critical, or that you would have, felt, he was like, I had no idea when you were in college. And he was like, I just want to make sure that I never said anything to you that like you are, holding against me, because he was like, I love you like a brother. You're a great person. I loved working with you. He was like, I have no judgment and no resentment. And I recognize, you embracing who you are, and, being married now and everything else. And I was like, I don't remember you ever saying anything like that. I was like, but I really appreciate you at least, making that effort to proactively apologize for something that you never, or that I don't even remember you doing.
Right. That you didn't
Yeah,
recognize him
yeah. And I
doing.
was
Yeah.
like, if he
Yeah.
did say something, it just rolled off my shoulders. But I, obviously, he was very involved in sports and athletics and in that kind of like crowd, that jock crowd, and I feel
Hmm.
like that was probably part of his lingo back then, was to, comment on, negatively towards other gay people or whatever. And
Right.
maybe in some point he thought he had said something that I would have been offended about. And I was like, no, like you never did. But I like that's really nice that you would, recognize that there was that potential and apologize for that. So it was kind of funny that I was just like, no, you're good. You're good. I wish more people would have said that, but no, I can relate. So you go ahead.
Do you guys think that I mean, you both kind of sound like you have similar things where you had these friends, and obviously, people say dumb stuff when they're kids, whatever. I mean, sometimes people say dumb stuff when they're adults. Like, do you think like having those kind of small, seemingly meaningless interactions that kind of as a closeted gay person that you guys are extra like sensitive to, and you're kind of like, all right, noted, yeah, I might not say something to you, or I might not come out to you. You might not be a safe person for me. I mean, I can only imagine that happens more frequently than not, especially
Right.
if you're not.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I think it does impact how you view that person. Not necessarily that you view them negatively,
Right.
but it does kind of change like what levels of your person that you're allowing them to see.
Correct. Yeah, how much you're
but
willing to share.
Right.
Yeah, but the funny thing about that is kind of like with David's situation. My situation is one of those where when I did finally come out to them, it kind of changes their perspective when they have somebody that's close to them that comes out, and they're like, they see it as, oh, you're not a different person. You're still the same person. It's just I've learned a different layer about you.
Right.
Yeah.
I've gotten a deeper layer that I didn't know before. That doesn't change who you are. You're still the same person. And that's what I think a lot of people fear when coming out is
Of course.
that when you're coming out to somebody, they're going to see you as this total alien person instead of just the fact that you've just basically given them a layer of your onion that they didn't have before.
Nothing's changed.
Like all the other layers are still there.
Right.
You just got a little deeper in.
Yeah, nothing's changed. It's still me and still the same person that you grew up with, still the same person that worked next to you and and all these other things. But now you have seen just a little bit deeper into my persona. And it's so interesting that we experience just that unraveling of those layers sometimes. It's interesting. So Steve, when you went off to school, you went to Midwestern State University, right?
I did go to Midwestern a little bit. Yeah.
So did
I didn't finish my degree, unfortunately.
Right.
But
during your college time, where you were like a little further away and on your own, maybe was it easier for you to be who you were, or was it still the same sort of, hey, let me keep this all under the wraps kind of thing?
at home, it was still, keep it under wraps, don't talk about it. But I kind of got more comfortable with myself, especially being around friends that I was out to.
Yeah.
There were a couple of people that I was out to that I could be comfortable just talking about things, and have casual conversation of, oh, that guy's, attractive, and that sort of thing. And then, as you kind of develop that, you develop a little more sense of who you are, as opposed to all of the masks and stuff that you put on
Right.
when you're in the closet. You kind of develop, you get to see yourself a little bit more and become a little more comfortable with yourself as you kind of do that. So I think having friends that you can come out to as early as possible, is important in how to get that sense of self again,
Right.
as opposed to the facade that we put on for everybody else to
Yes,
see.
the layer of masks that are sometimes worn.
Sometimes multiple.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what made you, I guess, eventually decide that it was time to let your mom know, and then maybe I don't know what the rest of the family, that kind of revealing was like? Or...
I've not really discussed it with the rest of the family, but I don't care if they find out. Like, if they find out, that doesn't change. I came to a realization in my early 20s, and some of it had to do with so this is an interesting story and very complicated as to how I didn't come out to my mom until I was 30. But I also
Let's hear it.
Yeah, so this will be a little side tangent, but
Do it.
it's an interesting side
Go.
tangent, and it definitely involves the gay community. So I found out that I was HIV positive when I was
Hmm.
24, and that's an intense, especially when you're still kind of in the closet to family, and you only have a handful of friends that know about it or know about you.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very like you worry about your support system, you worry about all the things because that's just a very scary thing, especially in the early 2000s, which
Hmm.
is 2004 was when I
Hmm.
found out. Um, and so that kind of I came out to my mom about that, but I didn't come out to her about being gay.
Okay.
Okay. Huh.
So she knew I was sexually
Right.
active,
Yeah.
but didn't necessarily have a direct link that I was being sexually active with
Hmm.
men. And I wasn't being that promiscuous back then. I was very aware of things and took precautions as best I
Right.
could. Still wound up getting positive due to some poor planning on my
Lapse in
part.
Sure.
judgment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, lapse in judgment. Um, and but she was very supportive. Like didn't and which when I finally did come out to her when I was 30, that was I expected it to be a pretty supportive thing at
Yeah.
that point,
Yeah.
based on how she handled that. But because my dad had had medical issues growing up and had passed when I was 17, and she had dealt with all that, I felt like she was probably going to be fairly supportive with my medical
Hmm.
issues. Um, and at the time, she was like, "Is that something you can get from an animal?" And I was like, "No, unfortunately, it's not."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been
um,
easier to
That's
explain.
kind of a mod question.
Yeah.
but it was just like I answered the questions with as minimal information as
Hmm.
possible because I
Hmm.
was still closeted in my brain uh, to her. But just in that, I developed like a lot of my friends were very very supportive, and that helped me get through the mental component of
Hmm.
finding out that I was HIV
Yeah.
positive
Yeah.
early on. And so when you get that and you have that support for that kind of system, you start to develop more sense of self,
Hmm.
and you either go one way or the other. You either get super concerned with what everybody thinks, or you just flat out say I give zero
Yeah.
f's. you
Hmm.
know
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm just going to be me, and if you don't like me, then you can go the other
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
and that kind of helped me come to a point where I just got comfortable enough with myself that if I say hey, he's an attractive dude in a group of people that have no idea one way or the other, I'm not going to feel judged by it
Right.
because that's, you know, any of them could have said it and it would have been perfectly
Right.
fine, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So,
You're at that level of comfort with
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
That's awesome.
It's neat. And so as you kind of embraced who you were and shared this with your mom and have kept progressing in your own professional career and everything else, how has your life, I guess, maybe changed? And I know you and I know that you're doing just fine. So how has your life like gotten better or progressed in a positive manner, from there on out, I guess?
I think with coming to that realization of being comfortable with who
Hmm.
you are in general, like it's not just about being gay, it's just
Hmm.
being comfortable with who you
Accepting
are.
that, right?
Yeah.
Um, Accepting who you are and how you feel about things, and just being comfortable with being who you are in front of people, which is not easy. It's for in the beginning. Once you get there, it's you just kind of do it. And I'm still very much I have a personality of a people
Hmm.
pleaser, so I like for people to be happy around
Yes,
me.
I think all three of us here can
Get
we
it.
can relate to that.
So I definitely care about what other people
Hmm.
think in general, but I'm gonna be
Yeah.
me. And
Hmm.
if you don't like being who I am, then that's fine. There's
Yeah.
a billion other people around here that you
Yeah.
can you can go be around, not be around
Yeah.
me.
You accept that
So
that's just,
yeah,
not everybody's
and
going to be your best friend and connection. You don't have to. That's not what this is about, but accept it for
exactly.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really neat.
And some people, it's kind of like Medea says. Some people, it's like a tree. Some people are like a leaf. Some people are like a branch, and some people are like a
Hmm.
root.
Hmm. That's true.
you know.
Yep.
That's really remarkable.
So
Very true.
So I appreciate hearing the differences in how various people in your life have reacted to this news and how you expected them to react to this news. And one of the things that I talked to you about before we were when I approached you with the idea of being on the podcast and sharing a little bit about your story,
mhm.
one of the things I remember you mentioning is that you don't necessarily wear a rainbow on your sleeve and walk around in, sparkles and glitter and everything. And most of the people who probably meet you in your everyday life like aren't even aware that you're gay. But it's just one of those things about
Mhm.
that it is who you are, and you've accepted that. And you recognize that that's a unchanging element of your being, and it's not something that you need to necessarily advertise or go around and shout from the rooftops. But when people find out and when people learn that about you, it's not something that you're worried about them finding out or learning about you either right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you come at it from that aspect where you're not that I mean, be who you are. If you're a flamboyant
Hmm.
queen, be a
Right.
flamboyant queen. Do it. But also, if you're not, and you don't, if you get to the point where you can be comfortable with who you are, then when somebody finds out, most of the time I feel like they're going to probably, if they were comfortable before they found out, they were going to be comfortable after
Hmm.
they find out, because you haven't changed who you are.
Yeah.
They just found something. It kind of comes out that way a little bit better than if you come screaming out of the closet as a queen when you were not, when you were very conservative
Hmm.
before, you know. But be who you are. But I think if you're comfortable with who you are in general around people, then when they find out that other layer of you, it's less of an impact on how they view
Hmm.
you.
Mhm.
Very true. Very true. So in your life right now, in your history of being who you are at this point, I know that you are very involved in several different careers in your life. You have a lot of different things that you dabble in, have your hands in. So I was just wondering if
Yeah.
you wanted to share a little bit about what you're doing now, work-wise, and what direction your life is heading from here, I guess. So tell us a little, what are you doing?
Well, right now, yeah, right now I work at the vet clinic, one that I've worked at since it's not the first one that I worked at, but it's one that I've worked at since about 2004. So I've worked there for nearly
Yeah.
20 years. They went through the whole process of me finding out that I was HIV positive, because that happened like the first year that I was
Hmm.
working there. Thankfully, the doctor that now owns it, he was just a practice manager at the time, but the doctor that now owns the clinic was very supportive and just very understanding of everything that went through it. And he was like, "I'll be there, whatever you need me to do." You know, they were very understanding and didn't like, which is not always the case, especially
Right.
in conservative
Hmm.
communities. You're going to find that that could be a quote unquote
Yeah.
fireable offense. You
They'd
know,
find a
you kind
reason,
of worry about
right?
some of that. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'm still there 20 years later. So I'm one of their
That's awesome.
one of their
That's
best
great.
employees, one of their
That's
favorites.
awesome.
But being gay also does impact me as a massage therapist, because I also am a
Mhm.
licensed massage therapist. I've been one since
Hmm.
2007. You know, I've kind of not, I don't really open up about that side of me in
Sure.
general to everybody, but I'm open to talking about it if they want
Hmm.
to. Like if it
Mhm.
comes up, I'm fine
Right.
talking about it. But I also don't
Hmm.
advertise it, because it can come across
Yeah.
creepy.
Mhm.
It can come across as something other than just legit therapeutic
Right.
massage,
Yep.
because a lot of people can view massage in that light,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately. Um, and it's one of those things where not all of your clients are going to agree with you, but that doesn't mean that their money's not green.
That's true too. Really neat.
You're
Exactly.
providing a service, not a religious
Right.
experience, you know.
Right.
So it's
And it could be a
sometimes it can,
religious experience if you're good.
sometimes it can be,
I've had some pretty
yeah.
good massages before.
But
No, that's funny.
yeah, that is true. That is true.
That's awesome.
But no, but it does have certain impacts in that a little bit, I think. And just being a male massage therapist in general, um, I think some people just assume that if you're a male massage therapist, it's kind of like being a male nurse. They assume that if you're a male in that profession, you're
Hmm.
probably gay.
Mhm.
But I've always approached it and had the thought process of that me being gay has nothing to do with my profession.
Right.
So
Right.
if I put that energy out, then that's the way people should
Hmm.
view it.
Hmm.
And if and that way it only attracts people that are going to understand that and pretty much view it
Right.
that way. Like, this isn't a sexual thing. And do I get the occasional client that is freaky? Yes, I do. It's very few and far between, but
Hmm.
it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I know how to deal with those when they do
I was
happen.
gonna
But
say, what do you do? What do you do with those clients?
um,
You don't
How do you
have
shut
to
it
go into
down?
details if you don't
it,
want
de-
to.
it depends on how far they're willing to
Yeah, yeah,
push it.
Yeah.
A lot of them catch on because I have some very distinct verbiage on a sign in my massage room and on my
yeah.
client information sheet that says, there's no sexually explicit conduct that happens by the
Yeah.
therapist or the client,
Yeah.
period. And I have that verbiage in multiple places. And I even had one client that I could watch him because he's one of those readers that when he's reading, he's
Yeah.
mouthing the words.
Yeah.
And so, like, I could tell that he was reading it, and it's like he took it as a challenge. Um,
Oh, no.
so we get in there, and he's laying face down, and one of the first questions he asked me is, "Do we have to have the sheet over?" And I was like, "Yes, there is
Yes.
a law that
Need to be
requires
covered. Yeah.
draping." He goes, "Well, and some of the key like red flags are, well, if I'm not going to say anything to the police and like or to the
Mhm.
law or
Yeah.
whatever,
You're
Yeah.
like,
yeah,
nah.
that means that the towel that means
Yeah.
that means the sheet's
The
definitely
sheet is
staying on. You
definitely
haven't said
on.
anything
Here's
Yeah,
the
let me
as
second
get you the
one.
third or fourth
right.
sheet as
Here's
well.
a big blanket.
Exactly.
Here's
I'm
a
just gonna
big
put
thick
this one over
blanket.
your face.
And so yeah,
That's
and
funny.
so I worked on him with him face down and turned over, and he was very clearly aroused. Which, generally speaking, in massage therapy, you're
It
taught.
It
happens,
Like,
happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
it happens. It's because of it is, and it's not necessarily a sexual thing. It's a
Right.
you're
Physiological and
lowering somebody's blood pressure,
hmm
and that's what Viagra does. Viagra
hmm
literally takes care of high blood pressure, which is the reason
yeah.
people can't get erections. And so when you're lowering somebody's blood pressure naturally,
Yeah.
sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
And usually when they turn over, if it's not otherwise increased by libido and things like that, then it goes away when they
Hmm.
turn right side up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a gravity thing. The blood
Sure,
pulls to
sure.
that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
um, and then so he decided that he was gonna feel comfortable enough with himself to reach under the towel and start, or reach under the sheet and start touching
Mm.
himself.
Oh
And I
man.
said, "That's not okay. That's not
Yeah.
gonna happen." He goes, "Oh no, I wasn't trying to offend you." I said, "You weren't
Yeah,
offending
You're
me.
not
yeah. You're
offending
just
That's
like,
me.
just not
you
Yeah.
just can't
happening."
do that here.
Exactly. You're like, it's not
Like,
about offense
you
here.
just can't do that here. That's not
Yes.
this is not a
Funny.
sexual place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no offense, but I wasn't
Yeah, yeah,
interested.
yeah.
Exactly. And no.
Just because you have a penis doesn't mean I want your penis.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
That's the other thing that is a common misconception, I think, among people, especially straight men,
It's like
is
all
that
gay guys are attracted to all other men. It's like,
because I'm
no.
gay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, no, we have our preferences just like straight guys have preferences in
Yes.
women.
That's
It's
funny.
it's a thing. But anyway, so I was like, okay. He goes, "Oh, I wasn't trying to offend you." I was like, "No, you're not." And so he stopped for a minute. I was like,
Oh no.
"We're just going to call this good, and I'm just never going to
Yeah.
schedule him again." And then he reached down and touched it again, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, we're done."
Oh, look at the time. I think
Bye-bye.
we're
He's like, "But
over.
we still have 10 minutes." I said, "No."
No, you
He's
don't.
like, "We still have 10 minutes." I was like, "Nope, we're done. I'll step out and you
Oh,
can get dressed. Have a nice day."
Wow. There you go.
good.
So
Jeez.
you just gotta you kind of gotta shut
Oh, I'm
that down.
sure.
There's some
Of
that a lot of
course.
times, like I'll bring up in conversation during the massage. I'll be like, no sexually explicit contact. I'll work
Hmm.
it into the conversation somewhere, just so that it's
Yeah.
out there and said, and so that
Yeah.
you know what to expect from, especially if I get any of the
Right,
telltale
right,
red flags.
hmm
Uh, and there was one guy that I never had a red flag on. The very first guy that actually prompted me to put stuff in my room
Oh
um,
boy.
was this guy who he would come in. He would get a 90-minute session every couple of weeks. And after about the second session, this was during like May, June timeframe, so it was warm outside. He would come in wearing flip flop shorts and a tank top.
Yeah.
very
Just
minimal
quick take
minimal
on off,
clothing,
put it
which is
back
fine.
on.
You're
Yep.
coming in for a massage, you're taking it all. Yeah, super easy to take off. Well, it would take him about 10
Oh
minutes to
wow.
get dressed after the
Uh-huh.
massage.
Oh,
And after the second massage, I noticed there was a significant amount of tissue in the trash can.
Mm.
oh no. Red flag.
Eh, yeah, big
He's got
red
a
flag.
really runny nose.
And so and right, and that's the thing is like I didn't hear
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
go,
yeah, sure.
you know, didn't hear any of that.
That's
Oh
So
funny.
man.
I kind of assumed, and being a gay man, you kind of know what that smells like. It has a
Mhm.
particular odor, that's very distinct. um, and so I called my mentor, because this was like within the first year of me being a
Yeah,
full-time massage therapist, and called my mentor. I was like, "How do I deal with this? This is the first time I've
Yeah.
ever actually had
yeah.
to deal with this." And he's like, "Well," and this other person was a business owner here in town, and not necessarily a big higher up or anything,
There's
but
somebody
any
out
bad
there. Yeah.
news or bad publicity, any bad publicity early on in your massage career is kind of
Not.
can
Yeah.
can impact
Hmm.
you pretty negatively.
Totally.
And so he was like, "Well, you have a couple of choices. You can either confront him directly, which I'm not I'm a
Hmm.
confrontation avoidant person in general, or at least I especially was back then." And he's like, "You can put some signage up in the room and see if that deters him," which I did, and it didn't.
Of course not. Yeah.
But what's funny is like I had to kind of play this little part of acting like I
Right.
didn't know what was going on,
Yeah.
because he didn't give any indications that that was even on his mind, or that and I don't touch in certain erogenous
Purposely.
zones because I don't want
Right.
to stimulate that thought process. Yeah, and so after about the second time that he didn't get the hint, I decided I would take it upon myself to take all the tissue out of the room and take the trash can out of the room.
Problem
So he
solved.
had he had to either leave
Uh-huh.
evidence like on something other than a
Or
tissue,
take it
or
outside.
he got the point and realized, yeah. And if he'd
Go
waited until he
home.
got in his car, or if he'd just gotten up and gone immediately to the bathroom or something and taken care of it, I probably would
Hmm.
never have known,
Yeah.
and would have been all the better for it in my brain because I wouldn't have
Exactly.
known.
But being
But
in your space.
the funny thing was that gave him the indication that I knew what he
Hmm.
was doing, and I wasn't okay with it.
Hmm.
And he came out and he played it off very nonchalantly because he was making an appointment about every 2 weeks, like I said. And when he came out for that last session, I was like, "So do I need to put you down for 2 weeks?" And he goes, "No, I think I've got some things going on. I'll have to get back in touch with you." And then he left, and that was the
There you
last time I saw
go.
him.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
handled.
So
Yeah.
I was like, that kind of helped. That helped me avoid it
Yeah.
without having to be confrontational. But
That's
he got the
okay.
point.
That's a good
So
business move, though. I mean,
yeah,
you gotta you know, draw in ink what your
Well handled.
expectations
yeah,
Yeah.
are. Throw it out there.
That's
yeah,
Yeah.
so funny.
exactly.
Very interesting.
Oh
So
man, that's funny stories.
Well, neat, Stephen. It was very
yeah,
impressive to hear your background and your stories, and to hear how all of this unraveled for
yeah,
you and how you're living right now, and especially dealing with the extra baggage of all the different things that have come with you in your life for the
Hmm.
last many, many years. I think
right.
that's tremendous that to see that somebody who not only are you somebody who grew up in an area where this was not necessarily supported or recognized or appreciated, right? But you still embraced your reality of
Hmm.
your existence, and you had this additional hurdle of finding out that you were HIV positive and have somehow still managed, with all these burdens that have come into your life, to turn out like the person you are. I think it speaks volumes for your character, but as well, I hope other people who are listening to this will realize that none of those things are something that will completely shut down your life, or none of those things are something that is going to be the game over. There is that light at the end of the tunnel, and you're a testament to many of those challenges that I think a lot of the people in the LGBTQ community will be having to go through in their life. So it's truly remarkable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I think a lot of it is, and this is something that I kind of got from my parents, was your life kind of follows where
Hmm.
your train of thought goes. So if you're focusing, like your focus life follows focus,
Yep.
basically. If you're focusing on all the crappy, shitty things that happen in your life, then you get more crappy, shitty things. But if you're saying, yeah, crappy, shitty things happen, but I'm going to focus on the positive things that are happening in my life, like I've had this positive experience or this positive experience, um, then you tend to attract more of it. It is kind of the law
Right.
of attraction kind of thing. But if you focus on the positive, you get more positive outcome. So try to be less focused and less attention giving to negative things. Yes, they're going to happen, but the more attention you give them, the more of them you're going to get.
So true.
Right. I need that. I need
Um, so
good
just also
words to
some
live
little
by.
fun nuggets about Stephen. A very avid DC comic fan, something that we share in common
Oh, absolutely.
quite a lot. And one of my there you go. One of my favorite things also are, yeah, you have some phenomenal
Sensing up.
collections in your house. Yes, I love it. That's really neat.
Can you guess who my favorite character is?
Would it begin with S and end in Uperman by chance?
Maybe.
So one of the ways that I've stayed in touch with Steven so well over the last many years as well is that both he and I play Pokemon Go, and are avid Pokemon Go
Yes.
players. I
Speaking
know.
of, there's
I
a
was like,
community day
yeah,
today
we're recording on Galarian Slowpoke and regular Slowpoke community today. So Steve and I both have to get going because we have Pokemon to catch. But
No idea what you
Veronica's
just
like,
said,
what's
but
Pokemon?
She's like, that was all
What's a
gibberish.
Pokemon?
I know a Pokemon.
Go, oh, Pikachu. Okay, besides
Pikachu!
Veronica, can you tell us any other Pokemon?
No.
Squirtle,
Absolutely
Charmander. Oh, hey, Jigglypuff's one.
Is
Good job.
Jigglypuff one?
Yeah.
Jigglypuff, yep.
I literally just, that came out of nowhere. I don't think I could name
So,
another one though.
yeah. So Stephen and I
That's
have a lot in
funny.
common. Those secret little side hobbies of ours. I too am a huge DC comic fan.
Our fun little nerdy sides.
I do. We both
Embrace it.
shamelessly play Pokemon Go on at least 2 different accounts. I'm not proud of it,
Yes.
but it happens. And that's.
Be proud of it.
Of course, I'm proud of it. Damn it! Both my accounts are level 40 now. Thank you very much.
Heck yeah.
Woo!
I can't get past level
well,
43. There's two. It involves a lot of stuff that I'm not really that big into.
I haven't
so.
gotten that far yet, but I just realized my main account is almost a level 41, like this close, and then I looked and it's still another 600,000 XP, and I was like, oh my god, like it's like we're so close but so far away. Okay, we'll stop nerding out, so the rest of you will continue listening for our next episode.
Nerd out, man.
Right. There's lots of nerdy gays out there that would like
yes,
this.
there are. I know a good many of them.
Too, for sure.
I think
Sure,
half my
yep.
Pokemon Go friends are actually in the LGBT community, on some level. So it's
Perfect.
yeah.
You guys should get
Somewhere on
together
the spectrum.
a Pokemon.
There
It's
you go.
Okay to Be Gay
It's
group.
okay to be gay podcast
Okay.
Pokemon group. We'll see you guys soon.
Pokemon edition.
Stay tuned for the upcoming.
I should just put our trainer.
Right.
I'll just put
On
our trainer
Pokemon.
codes on the website so you all can log on and friend us.
There you
and
go. Add us
send me
as
gifts.
friends. We can use it. We can use it for research.
Veronica's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm gonna laugh because it sounds fun.
I don't know. Sounds fun.
That's awesome. Yes, I love it. I love it.
Whatever, David. That's not like we didn't grow up literally playing Power Rangers and X-Men
Oh, yes.
and random
Yes.
superheroes as kids.
The 90s X-Men animated TV show was the best. I
See?
loved it.
It's in here.
I loved it.
The
Oh
inner nerd
man, that
is
show
here.
could have run for
Yes.
like 14 seasons, and I don't think I would have gotten bored of it. I'd still be watching if it was on.
Disney is in the process of doing a continuation, not a remake, but a continuation of the 90s original X-Men.
I'd be okay with
X-Men.
that. I would be okay with
Nice.
I
fine
am
to be okay.
They
so
would hit
excited.
their target audience
Yeah.
of all
Yeah.
of us, 30-some-year-olds,
Now we can
40s.
All of us
afford
adult
to
kids that have money.
blow
Yeah.
money. Yep.
I mean, I
hmm
still buy action figures.
All of us late 30s, early 40s somethings.
I still buy action
That's right.
figures when I'm
Heck
at
yeah.
the
Spend our money
store
where
every so often.
exactly.
I'm not proud of it. So yeah, it's just who we are. Anyway, Stephen, thank you again.
Accepted.
I went
Oh
to
yeah,
Disney a
no, yeah,
couple of
you
weeks. Yeah,
did. Tell us
yeah.
about your
Go ahead.
Disney trip real quick. Yeah, I was super jealous. I
Oh my
I
gosh,
saw.
we don't have time for that,
Okay,
but
tune in for part 2 of Stephen, where he tells us about his trip to Disney.
yes, Disney
Stephen, we'll
edition.
have to have you back on.
There
Wait,
you go,
Disney
Disney
World?
We'll
edition.
have to have
That
you
would be
back
Disneyland?
on.
fun.
You can tell us about your Disney experience.
Absolutely, I
No,
would love to be back.
that would be a
Yeah.
blast and a half. And like I said, I
Yeah,
meant that every word of it. You are truly a remarkable person. Everything that you've been through, everything that you've gone through, um, and I think you're a sparkling example of the fact that it is okay to be gay. So thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing so much about yourself and your life experiences. I think that there's definitely a lot that people can take from what you had to say, and you are very relatable on so many different levels.
Yeah.
thank you. I'm
It's
glad to
nice to
help,
meet you.
and I really do hope it does help. Yes, it's very
Yeah,
nice meeting you. I've had a great time, and I
awesome.
appreciate y'all having me
Well,
on.
thank you everybody out there who's listening today. We appreciate you tuning in for this episode of the It's Okay to Be Gay podcast. On behalf of Veronica, Stephen, and I, we are so glad that you were here and want you to know how much you are appreciated, how much you are respected and loved. And everybody have a great rest of their day, and we'll see you on our next episode.